Jamie Mullner. I am with the Michigan Department of Education. I am home here at East Lansing, and it's supposed to be, I think, 58 degrees today, so it's wonderful. I also just literally sent my 2 young sons on the school bus for their first day of in-person school in 360 days. Not that anyone's counting, right? But literally 5 days short of a full year home. And so this is all really exciting. So I hope all of you are also moving towards a new normal, maybe finding that balance that we all need so much. So I'm part of the team that oversees the Farm to School program and also 10 cents a meal.
Yeah, I can't buy anything from Farm to
And
School.
we are happy that you could join us today to learn about sourcing local for the 10 cent grant. I know there's a lot of challenges this year with sourcing local.
No.
We hope this training helps you find those items that you need. Just a quick note about this training before I turn it over.
8 to 7.
Is that if you have questions about the grant that are beyond local sourcing, like maybe with the survey, with Farm Logics, reimbursements, anything like that, if you want to hold those questions off until the end of the training, we've actually allocated some time just for those kind of questions. So the MDE staff will be staying on afterwards to answer any of those questions. But that's, I think, it. Colleen, if you want to get started, that'd be great.
And we are co-hosting this today. We have our trustee staff from the Michigan Department of Education, and then our trustee crew from the Michigan Farm to Institution Network. And we are comprised of MSU Extension educators and some staff members from the MSU Center for Regional Food Systems, where I am located. My name's Colleen Matz, and I'm the Farm to Institution Specialist and MFIN coordinator and 10 cents evaluation partner. So we've got a great group here today to try to do a quick run through on the basics of local food procurement first, and then local food sourcing and some resources to help. And we've got all hands on deck to try to help because we know that there's urgent interest and urgent need. So the first thing I was going to ask you all who are attending to do, just so we can have a sense of who's here, I see over close to 60 people. So if you can find the chat box and introduce yourself, please do type in your name and your affiliation, whatever school or district or center you are from, just so we can see who's here today. All right. And I'm not going to go through the whole list of who's here today because there are just too many, but you can also see who's here participating in this, and we'll be doing some learning together. And just a reminder to please mute yourself if you can, because we've got a lot of folks here today. And we are recording this. We will make this recording available, hopefully in smaller pieces for anybody who misses it afterwards, or if you need to refresh. And we will see about getting slides out. There was a request for that too. Okay, so I will try to stay monitoring this chat box and questions as we work through this first portion, and then we'll shift over to the local food sourcing and resources. But one more thing before we do that. Do you have burning questions? We would like to try to be sure to answer those burning questions and in the appropriate part of this training. So if you have any burning questions, please do drop those in the chat as well, and I'll keep an eye on those and hopefully we'll cover them. If we can't cover them today, we'll make a list of what we can't cover and be sure to get back to you all as a group so you all have answers to those burning questions. But thank you all for attending. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our MDE team to cover the basics of local food procurement. Jasmine, are you there?
Me?
Jasmine Stinson.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. There you are.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi.
And now
Hi,
I can see you.
everyone.
Hello.
My name is Jasmine Stinson, and today's training topic in procurement will focus on just the very basic concepts. Good procurement applies to the spending of any federal funds. Next slide. So what is procurement and why? Generally, when we use the term procurement, it refers to the process of purchasing goods and services. Sponsors must comply with local, state, and federal procurement regulations to make sure taxpayer dollars are spent wisely. Proper procurement provides accountability for the effective use of program funds. It also helps get the best possible price for goods and services. Next slide. So what is cooperative purchasing? A type of group purchasing to increase buying power, reduces costs, and improves the quality of products and services available to group members, and ultimately the children in the meal programs these agencies operate. Cooperatives and group purchasing organizations are used in Michigan for the child nutrition program sponsors to use USDA foods. Sponsors must also remember to procure other items like bread, milk, paper supplies, chemicals, and even appoint a service company. Next slide.
Sorry, this is taking me a minute, Jasmine. Managing too many pages here. There you go.
Okay. So the procurement regulations require a different process depending on the annual dollar amount or value of the purchase. The methods are commonly referred to as the informal and formal methods of procurement. Next slide. Now, let's look at these thresholds. For non-public and non-school institutions or sponsors in Michigan, the small purchase threshold for food, supplies, and services follows the federal level, which is set at $250,000. It is important to note that local authorities can set thresholds lower than the federal or state of Michigan requirements. Sponsors must adhere to the most restrictive, lowest threshold set in all situations.
Yes.
The slide said 150,000, it's actually 250,000. Next, yep. Okay, so for public schools in Michigan, the small purchase threshold for services follows the federal level, which is set at 250,000, not the 150 on the slide, but it's 250,000. Michigan has set a level of $100,000 for food purchases and a level of $24,924, which is different from the slide you guys have, so it's higher. And that's for non-food and supplies. It is important to note that school boards or local authorities can set thresholds lower than the federal or state of Michigan requirements. And FSAs must adhere to the most restrictive, lowest threshold set in all situations. And the non-food and supplies threshold is a per purchase amount. Okay, did we skip a couple slides? I wonder if we skip some.
I just saved it straight up, so I'm afraid.
Nope, these couple I think were moved ahead.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Thanks, Emily.
Okay. All right, so what is micro purchasing? It is a type of informal procurement and it can be used when the annual aggregate dollar amount is less than $10,000. Micro purchases are intended to minimize the burden for very small purchases and may be awarded without soliciting competitive quotations if the operator considers the price to be reasonable. Sponsors must try to distribute micro purchases equally among qualified suppliers, and it is important to mention that sponsors may get a better price if they use another method that allows for more competition. They are not obligated to choose a micro purchase method. The principles of good procurement apply to micro purchasing as well. Use fairness and integrity in the process, operate with transparency, and use documentation to support your decisions or invoices. Next slide. So the 5 basic steps of a micro purchase. Micro purchases must not be split randomly. For example, you wouldn't split bell peppers into separate solicitations for green, red, and yellow peppers just to force them into the micro purchase threshold. Next slide. Now, let's look more closely at the informal procurement methods. Informal procurement is the required method for when purchases fall at or below the federal, state, or local purchase threshold. Competition must still occur and at least 3 quotes need to be requested. Although it is not advertised, it is important to refer to written specifications when contacting vendors for quotes to ensure that consistent communication is provided in order to keep a level playing field. Quotes should be obtained in writing if possible. Sponsors will award the contract to the lowest bidder that is both responsive and responsible. All procurement steps must be documented and documentation must be obtained. Here are the 5 basic steps of informal procurement, which consists of providing written specifications to the vendors that detail the requirement of the intended agreement, including delivery and packing requirements, and then acquire bids from at least 3 vendors. If you are unable to find 3 bidders, you must document why and make note of your efforts to broaden the specifications in order to get the required 3 bids. No matter the method, you need to document all bids. This demonstrates that each vendor had free and open competition. Awards must be made to the most responsible and responsive bidder with the lowest price. And finally, you are required to properly manage the contract, assuring that funds you are spending are exactly what you require through the specifications. For food service management companies or vended meal contracts, the MDE imposes a pre-review requirement for informal solicitations to ensure bid specifications are appropriate and also best addresses scope and terms of service. So what is geographic preference? Basically, the 2008 Farm Bill provided an exception to the procurement regulations and enabled sponsors to state a preference for local products. This provided 3 major objectives. 1, clarifies who can define local. 2, defines the term unprocessed. And 3, explains that local cannot be used as a specification. Unprocessed, locally grown or raised agricultural products are those that retain their original character. Heating and canning would change their inherent character and therefore not allowed to be considered unprocessed. Geographic preference is meant to offer a defined advantage to products meeting a sponsor's definition of local, but should not be seen as a guaranteed set aside. Okay. So the principle, full and open competition. So how can you get locally grown or unprocessed, or sorry, local grown or produced products? You can include it in your solicitation, a responsible delivery time that is close to harvest, such as delivery must be within 48 hours of harvest, or you could specify a specific ripeness stage, such as within 24 hours of best quality ripeness, or you can specify a specific variety grown in your local area to increase the opportunities for local farmers to win the contract, but doesn't exclude other farmers that grow that same variety from bidding. Okay, forward contracting. So what is forward contracting? If you grow this, I'm going to buy it from you. Forward contracting is contracting with a local farmer or producer to provide you with a specified amount of a perishable product, such as fruits and vegetables, at specific times for a set price. This burdens the producer and not the sponsor with shortage.
And it says a host is muting me.
Yeah, no, you want to be.
For producers, forward contracting reduces the uncertainty of finding a market for a perishable product, has a set price and source of income at a date determined in the future. So what is an opportunity buy? You may want to participate in what is called opportunity buys. This is where a local farmer, distributor, or manufacturer may be offloading a product they have on hand at a low price. A common question is, how will I plan or figure out a way to fit it into your programs or program? One step is to start building a relationship with the local farmer or producer. However, this can require additional time and logistics to accommodate. Do your research beforehand. What do kids like? What's in season and when? What about menu and flexibility? These are just ways to begin brainstorming ideas to find great products at lower prices. Please let us know if you have any questions. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Jasmine. We do have one, I think it's just a clarifying question. What was the non-food and supplies amount for Michigan, the threshold amount, I'm assuming?
Or when the slide said 150,000,
I think so, yeah.
it's 250,000.
That's the federal threshold, right?
Federal, Michigan's 100 for the food, and the non-food is, it depends on if they're a public school or non-public. But for Michigan, the 24,924 is for non-food and supplies.
I think we've got it, yep. Thank you. Any other questions for Jasmine while we have her here? So essentially, Jasmine, what I'm hearing is that the small purchase threshold gives a lot of room for buying local products, and you still want to document.
Yes.
And
Alright.
we'll be around later for questions if anything else comes up. And you can also email Jasmine or myself. This is Emily Ross. I will type our contact information in the chat, and then Colleen has that if you're sending out any other supplemental materials as well.
Correct. And can you list titles as well there too, Emily?
Definitely.
Thank you. Just so we can keep everybody straight today. Got a lot of speakers. All right. Well, I trust there will be some more procurement questions coming down the line as people dive more into it. And thank you very much for guiding us through that today, Jasmine. And it's good to meet you. We've not met in person yet either.
Nice to meet you too.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to dive into a little bit more of the where and how to find local food products. So our team here at the Michigan Farm to Institution Network will cover this section. And as we mentioned, we'll cover some administrative or logistics questions about 10 cents in general at the very end of this webinar. So we're going to focus in on purchasing local food right now, the how and where. So just to give you a quick description of what we do at the Michigan Farm to Institution Network, we are a network of practitioners like yourselves who are working to purchase local foods for their institutional food service programs, but we also have researchers and advocates and facilitators like those of us at the Center for Regional Food Systems, and we have a number of farmers and food hubs and food distributors that are involved as well. So it's a space to try to connect the dots between local food buyers and local food sellers. And we are there to provide a space for learning, sharing, and working together to help farm to institution programs grow. And we are working to help institutions meet a goal of local food purchasing. Our original goal was 20% by 2020. And of course, we're now in 2021. So we're in the process of setting some new goals and priorities going forward. But you're welcome to join our network. Anyone's welcome to join. It's really just a way to first gather more information and communications about what we're up to and what new resources are out there. And then if you're interested in engaging in some of our events, then it's a great way to get more support and get networked in around the how-to of local food purchasing here in Michigan. And you'll see our management team here, and all of these folks, minus just one, are participating in this webinar training today. As I mentioned, I'm Colleen Matz from the MSU Center for Regional Food Systems, and Xaviar Parati is our data manager for the Farmed Institution Network. She will not be here today, but we've got the rest of the team in full effect. So Noel Balacek is here from the Center for Regional Food Systems, as well as a number of our MSU Extension educator partners. They're all with the Community Food Systems team at MSU Extension, and they work on farm to school and farm to institution together across the state and through the Farmed Institution Network. But they're also really great resources in your local community because they're located all across the state. So you'll hear a bit more about that as we go through the training today, but I wanted to include everybody's emails here in case you wanted to follow up with anyone. So we've got Mario Borgman, Abby Harper, Abby Palmer, and Garrett Ziegler. And maybe when they each hop on, they can mention where they're located and the area that they cover as well, but you'll see a full list as we go through the training here. So Garrett Ziegler is our first up, and he's going to talk about buying local from distributors. Hi, Garrett.
All right. Good morning, everybody. As Colleen said, my name is Garrett Ziegler, and I am a community food systems educator with MSU Extension. And I'm actually based over on the west side of the state in Grand Rapids, and kind of cover the central western part of the state with my food systems work. So if any schools are located over there, feel free to reach out to me if you have any specific questions about sourcing from local folks in that area of the state. So I'm just going to real quickly go through some of the kind of like key points about buying local from distributors. So these are the broadline distributors, the larger maybe specialty or produce distributors that you probably already have some form of a contract with or an agreement to buy a certain percentage of your products from that distributor for your school food service operation. So there's a lot of distributors that we have here in the state of Michigan that are based here. So I'm sure everybody's familiar with Gordon Food Service. They're based here in the West Michigan, Grand Rapids area. We have Cisco in the state of Michigan, US Foods, which I think operates more kind of on the southeast part of the state. Van Eerden is another large food source operation that's based over here in Grand Rapids. And then we have a number of kind of smaller specialty distributors that maybe just specialize in produce, like Coastal Produce Distributor. Pearson Foods is a distributor and processor here in West Michigan that does a lot of like fresh cut processed products for schools and for retail food service operations. Other distributors like LaGrasso Brothers, that kind of really just focus on a specific Michigan produce items or other produce items, kind of sourcing from the Great Lakes region. So we have lots of these distributors and specialty distributors located across the state, and there's a lot of great reasons for you to look to them to potentially be a source for local food. So obviously, as I said, many of you might already have established relationships with these broadline distributors. You have a sales rep that's already there from Cisco or from GFS that you're communicating with, that's letting you know what items they might have available, where you can get local things, all that kind of stuff. So it's really easy, has a really high ease of access for you. You don't have to go do a lot of digging. You don't have to be reaching out to multiple farmers. You can just kind of go to that one source and see what they have local. Also, these distributors are obviously already very experienced providing institutional scale and quantities for their products. They may have products in forms that might be easier to integrate into your existing food service establishment or food service menu and operation. And also many times they also already have an established food safety program and management. So they will be able to provide you with food products or produce products that are food safety certified in some form or fashion, and have all those kind of traceability things, which can be small farmers or some of the smaller distributors we'll talk about later, might have different things established around food safety. Some of the things that, reasons that sometimes distributors can be difficult to source from, they obviously can be harder to identify what products are local and what aren't local products. based off of just when you're ordering from them. If you're buying directly from a farmer, obviously where that farmer grew that product and where it's coming from. And there's just maybe not as much flexibility and direct connection to growers. So if you're really looking to work with a farmer that's hyper local to you, down the street kind of thing, obviously a distributor might not be the best place to go for that. Next slide, please. And I did want to just point out a quick example here that GFS is, as I said, one of the larger distributors in the area that works with a lot of our schools in the state and institutions. And we were informed by them that if you're looking for local products from GFS, they have this this list called Michigan Fresh, and this is something that they update weekly. That their sales reps are all provided on a weekly basis. That if you reach out to your sales rep at GFS, they'll be able to provide you with this list of all the products that they have available locally, and it actually shows when they're available, what kind of season they're available, who the actual grower is, what quantities are available, and the order number. So this is a great resource if you are a GFS customer for wanting to just kind of see, okay, when can I get these products locally? How can I kind of play my menu out? How can I make sure that I'm being able to spend down the 10 cents dollars that I'm receiving? And many of the other distributors may have similar lists available if you just reach out to your salesperson or contact those contacts there to see what types of local products they might have available. Next slide. And then lastly, another great resource that I wanted to point you towards for being able to find products locally, especially from some of our broadline distributors and other specialty distributors, is this Cultivate Michigan sourcing guide. So this is a thing that we've put together through the Michigan Farm Institution Network, and we actually have 24 different Michigan farm produced products in this Cultivate Michigan sourcing guide, and listing out for each of those products where they can be found from broadline distributors, specialty distributors, as well as food hubs, which we'll talk about more later on, and kind of the specific quantities that are available, what seasons they're available, and what farms they're available from, forms. So this is kind of like our version of what GFS has, but we have included a lot of other distributors beyond GFS, and it's just a great way to be able to find local products. So I think that's all I have.
Thank you, Garrett. And next up, we have Noel Balachek from the MSU Center for Regional Food Systems.
Good morning, everybody. Nice to be here. As Colleen said, my name is Noel Balachek. I'm the coordinator of the Michigan Food Hub Network, and I'm at the MSU Center for Regional Food Systems. So I'm going to talk a little bit about food hubs, and food hubs are a procurement channel that you may or may not be familiar with. And the term food hub gets used pretty loosely. So I'm just going to take a second to kind of clarify what I mean by that, because there's kind of a whole range of things that could mean depending on who you're talking to. So for this presentation and our work at the Center for Regional Food Systems, we use a definition that was developed by USDA that says a food hub is a business or organization that facilitates the aggregation, storage, processing, distribution, and or marketing of source identified, locally, regionally produced food products. So we think of the essential function of a food hub as to distribute local and regional food products. So that's not to say all food hubs look or operate the same way. There's actually quite a lot of variation from hub to hub, and the products and services available to you through a food hub is going to depend a lot on where you're located in the state. You can go to the next slide, Colleen. So, so why would you work with a food hub? From a 10 cents perspective, food hubs can really help simplify your local sourcing needs. Food hubs do this by aggregating products from many farms and producers and then providing you with a single delivery and a single invoice. So that one invoice can have many farms and food vendors, which is probably preferable to working with many farms directly. You know, you don't have to manage all those different invoices, all those different deliveries. Food hubs also offer the sort of traditional wholesale distribution and last mile delivery services that some of the broadline distributors are going to offer. So you're not going to have to manage all those logistics on your end. And one really interesting thing that a lot of food hubs do, and we have a few hubs that have really specialized in this, is light processing of fruits and vegetables into fresh cut and ready to eat products for institutional markets. So we have 3 food hubs in particular: the Valley Hub at Kalamazoo Valley Community College, the Flint Fresh Food Hub, and Farm to Freezer, Michigan Farm to Freezer, that all really specialize in this light processing activity. And a lot of those food hubs can offer, custom processing, individual packaging, those sort of things. So something to consider. Other food hubs have designated wash and pack facilities for their growers, and several food hubs operate licensed incubator kitchens that can produce even cooked products like soups and sauces. Food hubs also offer farm identification and sourcing information. Again, this is one of the things that Garrett mentioned that's kind of difficult with working at the broadline producer or broadline distributor. It's not always easy to tell where those products came from, if they're local, if they're not local. With the food hub, you always know where the product came from. That makes it really easy to have transparent tracking of your local spend. So you can just look at that invoice and know that automatically those products all came from Michigan. You can go to the next slide, Colleen. So there are about a dozen active food hubs in Michigan, possibly more. As I said earlier, which food hub you connect with is going to depend on the location of your institution and to some extent the type of products you need. Here in Michigan, most food hubs are located along the I-96 and I-95 corridors, which is where Michigan's population is concentrated, but really food hubs are distributing products throughout the state. So just because you're not located in that area doesn't mean you can't work with the food hub. There's definitely opportunities wherever you are in the state. So something to consider. So if you're thinking about connecting with the food hub, there's a few ways you can go about it. Here in Michigan, we are fortunate to have a network of food hubs that work together to increase the supply of local products. They work together to help refer clients as well. As the coordinator of that network, probably the easiest way to figure out what food hub is the best fit for you is to just email me. My email's there. It's also, I think, was provided at the beginning. I'll throw it in the chat pod. But just drop me an email, let me know where you're located, what kind of products you're looking for, and I'm happy to make it that connection for you. You could also go to the Michigan Food Hub Network website, which is mifoodhubnetwork.com. We're working on putting some more information up there right now, and hopefully I have an updated website this summer. And then there's other resources you can find online, like the Good Food Infrastructure Map, or even other local food directories like Michigan Market Maker will list food hubs. So if that's something that you're interested in checking out, please reach out and we'll get you connected. Thank you.
Thanks, Noel. And our next speaker is Mariel Borgman from MSU Extension. Hi, Mariel.
Thanks, Colleen. Hi, good morning, everybody. My name again is Mariel Borgman. I am a community food systems educator who works in the southwest part of the state. And I am here today to talk a little bit about different options you have for buying directly from farms. So just to kind of define what we mean by buying directly from farms would be to actually purchase individual items or bulk quantities of items directly from an individual farm or a cooperative marketing agreement made up of individual farmers. So in this way, you are buying that item directly from the farmer who grew it or from another farmer who works directly with the farmer who grew it. And in this way, you have the closest kind of connection with that individual producer. So next slide, please, Colleen. So just wanted to throw out a couple of ideas. If you're thinking about buying directly from farms, some things you would want to discuss with those individual growers would be things like how much volume you would need. Depending on the farm you'd be working with, you might have different needs. So you want to kind of seek out farms that are going to match the level of volume you want to buy. Some farms are very small. You know, if we think about some of the urban farms we have here in Michigan, they are only growing very small quantities of produce. And then we have really large produce farms. So depending on what you need or the size of your school district, that would be a method of needing to evaluate those farms, but also when it comes up in the conversation, when you've found a farm to work with, being pretty direct about the volume that you'd be looking for. So they can help plan their growing and harvest schedules around that. You'll also want to ask them specifically about their wholesale selling experience. Some farms are really experienced in selling into wholesale markets, and they understand quality standards and packaging standards and things like that. It may be new for other farmers. So you'll want to get an idea of the experience that they have in selling in wholesale, and if that's going to meet your needs of what you're looking for, or if you'll need to ask them to learn a little bit more about that. Excuse me, you need to talk with them about delivery schedule so that you can find a farm that matches up with when you're going to need that food, if they can meet that delivery schedule that you need. And then also food safety measures. There's a really broad spectrum of different farm food safety programs. Actually, later this year, the Michigan Farm to Institution Network will be offering some webinars on this topic. So just a little plug to keep an eye out for that information if you're interested in learning more. But depending on your needs, you'll want to find a farm that matches your expectations for food safety. And a number of different ways that farms could demonstrate this would be by having a written food safety plan, being able to talk to you about specific practices that they have on their farm to ensure produce safety. Maybe they've gone through the Michigan Produce Safety Risk Assessment Program or have gone through a third-party audit like GAP. So there are a lot of different ways that farms can demonstrate their commitment to food safety, and it's somewhat dependent on the scale of the farm, which one of these are appropriate. And then how to contact them. So a lot of the farms I work with prefer text messages or phone calls versus email. So it's a good conversation to have with that grower about what is the best way to keep in touch and be able to reach them with questions. Next slide, please. Okay, so there are a number of different resources that we have in Michigan to help you find local farms. And I wanted to actually show a couple of these websites. So I'm gonna talk through them really briefly and then share my screen really briefly. So the first one is Taste Local Difference. And this is a database that is all Michigan producers. And it's one of the more up-to-date ones that is out there in terms of the profiles being current. These other ones, Michigan Market Maker and Local Harvest, you get a little bit of a mixed bag on which farms are up to date. So that's why Taste Local Difference is usually a good one to start with. And they have a specific list on there of farms that are willing to share, or I'm sorry, willing to sell to institutions. Other databases are the Michigan Market Maker and Local Harvest. And then if you're looking for just finding some information about farmers markets where you could then dig into their own websites to find vendors, the Michigan Farmers Market Association has a list of farmers markets in Michigan. And then some regional areas have specific websites where you can find local farms. So a couple of examples are the West Michigan Growers Group. If you're in the West Michigan region, they have their own website with local farms, and then the Michigan Farm Cooperative, which is in Northern Michigan. So I'm just gonna share real quick. So you can see a couple of these websites just to help you navigate through them. So this is the Taste Local Difference website, and we'll be sharing these links with you. So don't worry about jotting them all down right now, but I wanted to just clarify something on this website. There are a couple different ways to find farms. There's this Find Food and Farms tool, which will let you search by your zip code for farms within a certain radius. And then there's also this institutional sales directory, which is the one I'm in right now. And this one is growers that are actually looking to connect with institutions to either sell directly or through a distributor. So if you click on the little drop down on this, it will tell you which of these farms are actually willing to sell directly to you. And you can search this one by county. There's also a farm to school directory. And this is where I wanted to have a little clarification, because the farm to school directory sounds like maybe what you would want for procurement, but this is actually more about farms that are willing to come do talks with kids or do field trips or that sort of thing. So if you're interested in that, that is the place to go for that one. But for sales and procurement, it's really the institutional sales directory that you want. And then the only other one I wanted to quick clarify for everyone for navigational purposes is on Michigan Market Maker. There's a buy or sell feature, but I find that that doesn't get updated, or it's not always quite as useful as if you just search for what you're looking for. So if you are looking for carrots, for example, you can just put carrots in the search term and it will pull up all the different farms that sell carrots. So I think that's a little bit easier to use than to look in the buy and sell tool. But both of those tools are available on this website. And my internet's a little slow, so we may not get to see the map, but you can definitely explore this one on your own. So you can go back to the presentation, but that is how to find local farms.
Thank you, Mariel. And we're going to move on to Abby Palmer, who's coming to us from the Upper Peninsula to talk about school gardens.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Colleen. I'm located at the MSU Upper Peninsula Research and Extension Center in Chatham, which is in the central UP. And for any of the UP grantees who are on the call today, I can't wait to connect. I'm excited about what can happen with 10 cents this year. And I've been asked to talk a little bit about school gardens. So a school garden is a garden, a hoop house, or a greenhouse that is on site at your school. And can you, as a food establishment, use produce that you grow yourself? Yes. Next slide, please. Some points to remember about this, and this is from approved sources for food establishments from the Michigan Department of Ag and Rural Development. Basically, it's that the answer is yes, you may sell from your school garden to your food program or to a farmer's market. Typically, there's no special license involved, but all producers must assure that their produce is safe and wholesome and complies with applicable laws. So this is kind of bringing the food safety piece that we've been talking about all the way through these different levels of distribution. Now you're the one responsible for making sure that there's a food safety plan for the garden. And maybe that's a pro in your mind, and maybe that's a con. Next slide, please. So a couple of resources that we have here is the Garden to Cafeteria, a step-by-step guide that's from MSU Center for Regional Food Systems. This is a really cool document because it's very realistic. It says there's a learning curve for starting a garden to cafeteria program. And if you're new to this kind of work, it encourages you to start small. It gives you some tools for assessing the interest and support that might be available locally in your school. It helps you set like reasonable and measurable goals, like let's start by growing just one crop and let's see how that goes. And if you just got a farm, or whoops, if you just got your school garden going, maybe the first couple of years of that is just getting the garden going, and you can be looking down the line once you have some experience under your belt into actually sourcing from the garden. Next slide, please. So yeah, some of the cool tools that are available inside that Garden to Cafeteria guide is a self-assessment, an overview of relevant regulations, some food safety plan tools and ideas. What about crop planning? You know, how long does it take to get cilantro from a seed to a bunch, if that's what I'm trying to grow? And also talking about what is available when, the seasonality of produce. It's just, it's a really cool tool. It's very well done. It's short, but it gives you what you need to get started. Next slide, please. So if you're thinking this is a direction we would like to go, but we're new to it, I would say that you could start by filling out the garden to cafeteria self-assessment that is in that document. It'll tell you a lot about where you're at. Engage your school garden community. Are there teachers or community members who are involved with the school garden? Talk to them and see where their interests are at and get them on board for what crops they might want to grow and at what scale or volume you could produce that would be reasonable for the school. And don't hesitate to contact someone from MSU Extension. This community food systems team that's on this call has a lot of experience, and we will be able to help and connect you in your area with more to do with your school garden, farm to school, and procuring for 10 cents a meal.
Thank you, Abby. And I wanted to, before we transition, just answer a more basic question that did come up in the chat. And the question was, how do you use the 10 cents grant if you have a vendor contract already in place? So I think the message we're trying to send here without saying it directly, so I'll try to say it now, is that you should be able to work with your existing vendors to procure local fruits, vegetables, and legumes in fresh or lightly processed, including frozen forms, that you can use your 10 cents grant funds for. So talk to your vendor, your existing vendors, for what they have available that's from Michigan. Most, if not all, should have some products that are available from Michigan. Some do better than others. So if you are not satisfied, keep pushing your vendor to provide more local products. And this is a great opportunity for them to increase their sales a bit. But there are also other resources you can check in with if that broadline distributor, for instance, doesn't have what you want or what you need. So from what I understand, very few school contracts with vendors would go all the way up to 100% of your food. So you do have room, even if you have a vendor contract, to purchase from a local farmer if there's one nearby that works for you and has the products you're interested in, or to try working with a local food hub this year because of the 10 cents grant. So because you should have a little bit of room, that should give you some flexibility. But if your broadline distributor is all you are up for purchasing from this year, then definitely be in touch with your sales rep to see what you can buy that is grown in Michigan and is a fruit, vegetable, or legume that is fresh or minimally processed. And then you can use that with your 10 cents funds. So wanted to clarify that before we went any further into some additional resources. And we're going to hear in just a few minutes from a few of the food service directors who have been purchasing local foods for a little while. And they can talk a little bit more about that question too, how they've worked with their existing vendors to source more local, but also how they've gone outside those vendor contracts to purchase more local. Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Abby Harper from MSU Extension.
Thanks. So you can go to the next slide. Oh, sorry, you already went to the next slide. So obviously there's a lot of different options to navigate when you're thinking about local, and it can maybe feel a little bit overwhelming, but I want you to know that you have support staff that can help you. MSU Extension has a community food systems team, and our role is to support the development of community food systems throughout Michigan. We do that in a variety of ways, but one of which is supporting the development of farm to institution programs. So we are all based regionally. Our team has fluctuated over the last couple of years as far as size. So I'm trying to remember how many we are exactly, but I am in the greater Lansing area and cover mid-Michigan, and you already heard from some of the other members on our team as far as regions they cover. You can go to the next slide. So on our website, there's a really wonderful fact sheet. We're going to share the link, I know afterwards, but with regional contacts that you can reach out to. The MSU Extension folk are here on the list, and basically what we can help you do is navigate the options in your area. So most of us have a pretty good lay of the land in terms of what farmers are around, what sort of scale and size and practices they might have, and can help think through, you know, your plan. So if you just need kind of that buddy to help you think through what is the best approach for my situation, we're good buddies. So you can see the list there. I think we have most everywhere in the state covered. Northeast Michigan doesn't have anyone there, but we have some folks in the north part of the state that have a lot of great regional knowledge. So, and I think that's about it.
All right, thank you, Abby. And yes, we can follow up with maybe a list of helpful links and include this as one of them. But feel free to reach out to your MSU Extension educator in your area. They are familiar with 10 cents, and we'll be sure that they get this training too, so that everyone has the same base information, but they've definitely got a good lay of the land to be your buddy. As Abby said, they're happy to partner with you through this process. So you can find that resource sheet and many other farm to school resources on our Michigan Farm to School website. So I just wanted to give you a quick plug for that. And our friends at Groundwork Center for Resilient Communities, some of whom are on the call today, they also have 10 cents information all put together in one place at 10centsmichigan.org. And our Michigan Farm to Institution Network, which kind of connects more than just schools, but also hospitals and colleges and early care and education programs, all together around this local food purchasing and marketing effort, is at myfarmtoinstitution.org. And Cultivate Michigan, hopefully some, if not all of you have heard of it, but it's a local food purchasing and tracking campaign that we developed through the Michigan Farm to Institution Network. And we also have a lot of really great promotional materials. I know not all schools are in person just yet, or if they're in person, it looks different. So I'm not sure if everyone needs posters in the cafeteria like you used to have, but someday, again, hopefully. But we've got all of those resources on our Cultivate Michigan website, and those are free to download and print as you'd like. So we've got a little bit of time for other questions around local food sources and resources to help, if there are any.
Colleen, this is Abby. There was something that I wanted to mention and I forgot.
Okay, please mention it.
It was simply that if you're thinking about produce from the school garden and wondering, well, why would I do that in the first place? One of the things that can be fun about that is for students to see the entire process. They have a chance to participate in growing the food, and then they sort of see it through to eating it and sharing it with the rest of the school. And that can be really exciting. And it can also be a convenient way to do taste tests, which might be something you're looking to incorporate as you bring more local food or more fresh foods, figuring out what it is that's most liked by folks in the school.
Thank you. And we have heard from 10 cents grantees in the past that that taste tests in the cafeteria and in the classroom have been one of the most frequent activities to promote local foods in the school food program, but also one of the most successful. So just to add on to that. Any other questions? That was a clarification. Any questions? You can type them into the chat if you have any. So if nothing else, we'd love for you to know that there are a lot of places where you can buy local food in Michigan, and there are a lot of resources to help you, including a number of people who are able to partner with you as you work through this, if you're new to local food purchasing especially. And we've got a question about the 10 cents grant timeline. I'm going to pin that one and save that for the Q&A section after our food service directors here speak. We'll take some more general questions about 10 cents at that time, but noted. Okay. Xaviar Jaramillo, are you on the line? I haven't seen him yet. Xaviar, are you there? If not, Jennifer, we'll move on to you. Are you in a good place to talk? I saw you there.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. I'm going to scroll through some slides from Xaviar. And we'll start with Jennifer, and hopefully we'll catch up with Xaviar Jaramillo. We've got a few food service directors here, as I mentioned, who can share a little bit about their experiences and their journey with local food purchasing. So I think a main message that you'll hear is that you don't have to do it all at once, and you can start small and grow over time. And it may evolve and change based on what you find works for your program. So Jennifer has been doing Farm to School for a good long while, so we thought she would be a really great person to speak to the evolution of a local food purchasing program. Jennifer, turning it over to you.
Hello, everyone. The Farm to School program has been one of the most exciting parts about what we do. There's a lot of exciting parts about it, but about feeding kids and taking care of kids. But this has been just a wonderful opportunity to really take nutrition and education and take their knowledge to a different level. There was a farm to school program established in Dexter prior to me coming in, and they had a very vibrant program, and we have just continued to try to carry that torch and evolve it through the years. So there was a very strong taste testing program that we had in place. There were school gardens here. We began purchasing from our school garden. And then over time, we were finding that the taste tests were just a little bit, kept the idea of local as a novel idea. So then we wanted to evolve our program, and we began to incorporate menu features, daily salad bar offerings, and then we instituted a Michigan grown meal day that we would feature an entire plate worth of Michigan items. We started with one time a year, and then we moved to a couple events throughout the year. So through this, we've seen so many great results from taking part in this program. And as Colleen mentioned, start small, start where you feel that you can make an impact and that you're comfortable with, and then build on it from there. From where we've started and where we've grown to, working with local farms to purchase apples in the fall, to working with other local farms to see what they have available that we can procure from them. We talk to our broadline distributors to see, what do you have for Michigan? And as this program grows, especially this 10-cent program, and the demand for Michigan items grows, we see that there's more availability out there. There's easier ways to recognize. So some distributors are even putting on their website that it's from Michigan. So it's much easier to identify, but have conversations with your representatives to see what can you purchase and what makes sense for your program. We continue to look for new ways to bring things in. This year, we're unfortunately not able to utilize anything from the school garden, but we are continuing to talk to our local farmers about even the idea of seed contracts, which is it's a little bit out there for me. That's new territory. So I'm just trying to explore and see what else can we do. Our school district is not very large. We're about 3,000 students here, a little more than that. But, so from a procurement standpoint, we are not able to command a large volume. But finding the right partnerships, they are out there, and it's a great opportunity to work with our local farms. And we've had a lot of success with that. So, and through this, one of the things that I wanted to share with everyone is we've seen so many great positive outcomes from taking part in the 10-cent grant and the overall larger farm to school movement. We've really been able to increase the variety of the fruits and vegetable offerings that we've been able to feature. We have tried to be more creative with our recipes so that we're able to find new ways to showcase items that maybe kids have seen before, but let's feature it in a different way. Or especially with those tastings, getting items that are pushing the envelope for the kids a little bit more and expanding and broadening their tastes. We are seeing more recognition from our students regarding the local items. We have students that are coming into the cafeteria going, "What's from Michigan today?" And so they get really excited about that. And then through this program, I really feel strongly that we've been able to foster a greater connection with our parents and our community that's helped us to change what could be a stigma of school food and what parents remember from when they were in school. And so it's helping us to change the idea of what is possible within the school food service programming through the 10-cent grant and the farm to school movement. So we've been able to work with parents to help them change their perspective a little bit, and it's helped us to showcase that our offerings are healthy and wholesome. But I think a lot of that comes from being able to put a focus on our local produce. And through all this, we've been able to continue to build sales because of it. So, and if you have any questions, I'm always happy to help anybody who's interested. I'm willing to share more details about what we've done in our program. So feel free to reach out to me at any time.
And Jennifer, just to clarify, how long have you been doing farm to school, local food purchasing? And then how long have you been in the 10 cents grant program?
So farm to school has been established before I've been here for 6 years, and it was established before I got here. So I'm not sure exactly how long, but we have been in the 10-cent grant. I believe we're in our 4th year with that, and it's just a great program. So I think there's so much potential that can come of this. So.
And you do work closely with your MSU Extension educator, correct?
Yes, Jay is amazing. We love working with Jay Gerhardt, and she has helped us with, when we wanted to take on new challenges, to be able to reach out to her, and she has helped us connect to new farmers. She's helped us look at, writing additional grants, like with maybe a local businesses to say, how best to navigate that. If I have questions on, additional, other relationships and how to explore that, she has been just absolutely wonderful to work with. So I encourage everyone to reach out to your extension coordinator because they can just be a wonderful wealth of knowledge.
Thank you. Had to get that little plug in there.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Jennifer. Okay, I think Xavier has been able to join us in the interim, so I'm gonna flip back on his slides here and turn it over to Xaviar Jaramillo, who's with Spectrum Juvenile Justice Services. And maybe Xavier, you can also give a little background on how long you've been doing local food purchasing, and you are a new 10 cents grantee this year, but you have some experience to bring to it. So I'll turn it over to you and let me know when I can advance slides for you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'm glad I was able to join on. I got into farm to school with an original program called Hoop Houses for Health back in 2015. And that was very successful for our small juvenile center. And from there, we were able to locate a local farmer in East China, Michigan, and MSU Extension facilitated that friendship, so to put it. We've worked together for the past 6 years now in ordering not just vegetables and fruits, but currently Share Care Farms, we order treatment plants that she grows succulents for our residents, and they get to keep it in their little rooms and take care of them. And we go through probably 100 of those a year that the residents use and take care of. So we've grown significantly. So that's a little about what we do. We were able to visit our farmer, so always check out where your farm is from, where your produce come from. We visited during mid-harvest, and hit a hoop houses then where she was growing basil. See broccoli there, see some assorted peppers. Those are actually purple peppers. They look black, but when they cook, they actually become green again. So by learning about the farmer and what they can produce, we were able to use our menu, and we'll send our menu to her, and she was able to produce peppers for us from our facility, also salad mixes to go for us. Go to our next slide, please. We purchased some strawberries, not too many. What she did help us do is grow strawberries here in-house for the residents for our culinary program. We didn't grow too many squashes, but we purchased quite a bit, and we would roast it for them. And the residents on our cooking classes will also learn about all the vegetables prior to us serving it the following week. Artichokes was something they didn't really admire too much, but they enjoyed enjoyed the way it looked. Next slide. Our first year, we brought in a lot of eggplants, and we were processing it by hand. And we tried a couple different applications to it. We roasted it, we Italian seasoned it, and tried it out. And residents used one of the other way we were trying. We also served dinner. We actually fried some, and of course that was their preference. Next slide. Now, as was I said, it can be a little more time consuming, but the rewards in the end of having students and our kids in our state learning that you can grow eggplant in Michigan. Michigan has a variety of different vegetables that are grown, and eggplant is one of them. Quite a few varieties of eggplant. So we definitely talked to them about it and did tastings in the process. These were roasted in our ovens for them real nicely. They oxidized a little bit, but after it roasted, they actually enjoyed. The adults enjoyed these more, but we actually pan batter some, we oven baked some, and we fried some. Staffing, MSU Extension and MDE came up with a class that farm skills class that we're able to incorporate. Before that class came out, we were showing the kids how the staff in the kitchen were using the knives properly, how they cut the produce. But trainings, having your staff have additional training for them. So SNAM, School Nutrition Association Mission, offered the class where we can come in and show your staff for the new knife skills if you're bringing in more produce, how to fabricate more vegetables. And we provide these various videos you see on these links that we incorporate in that training. And we teach them how to use various recipes also. It's called a farm skills class. And I've done it in a few different districts 2 or 3 times where the district would have me still come in and actually incorporate a pizza or pasta dishes and incorporating various Michigan fresh farm produce. Next. These are the variety of peppers that were being grown at the local farm that we purchased. As you can see, it was beautiful blend of colors. We used the JTM beef, and we made stir-fried beef, or we made Philly cheesesteaks with those peppers. And you see, at that point, we were hand cutting them, but now we had an equipment grant a few years ago, and we're running through a machine right now. beautiful grape and cherry tomatoes that you see here. Share Care Farms was providing those, and we brought them in just like that. We washed them. We serve salads once, sometimes twice a week. You can get Michigan apples, melons, eggplants, zucchini, asparagus. Right now, the asparagus should be ready to be harvested in, I think, this month or next month for Michigan asparagus. So look at you. You can visit or reach out to your local farmers that you in your neighborhood. In your neighborhood, I'm in the city, so in your communities, you'll find what they have available this year. Some of them did some season extension in their hoop houses and may have a lot of herbs for sure available and some greenery. Next slide. This is inside one of the hoop houses. Share Care Farms had a Hoop House for Health grant, so she had season extension on a lot of her produce. As you can see, the variety. This is a smaller farm, but she was able to produce quite a bit of vegetables, and I see peppers and tomatoes at the beginning stages there. She also had a hoop house that had a hydroponic lettuce, Swiss chard, and arugula being grown there. So that's part of the season extension. She had those were great. Some you'll see the difference between the plants that were grown in the ground and some that were grown in the water hydroponically. So you'll see your preference of what your students will enjoy. We did a lot of tastings. So because we are a high security juvenile facility, we could do small tastings with our residents, but we also did major tastings with the state and county counselors who come in for our residents. So we'll provide, as you can see in the slide on the left, we had Farmer Sharon bringing a variety of her vegetables, and then we cooked a lot of it. This time around was actually with a very stir fry, so they can try and see what the students and residents were eating. A lot of it, if you continue to look for grants, like Jennifer said, it'll help continue to offset your food cost. So we were able to apply for the 10-cent grant, and we were a small juvenile facility. So we feed 100 kids per meal right now because our numbers are down. So we saw the opportunity to provide them with more local fresh vegetables, and to help offset the cost, the 10-cent grant was a great opportunity for us to jump into. We applied for it. We've also been reallocated more funds because we've used up the funds that we've had already. So if you are considering it, definitely be a great opportunity for you, school districts to do. Next slide.
I think that's our last one, Xaviar.
Excellent.
Yeah, you did it. And I just wanted to note the Michigan Farm Fresh Skills training that you were mentioned. Garrett dropped the link for that into our chat. Yes, and that originated with a training that Garrett and Mariel and another colleague of ours, Caitlin, who's no longer with MSU Extension, developed around culinary training and skills for using local foods in school food service programs for school food service professionals. So now that training is a part of the SNAM training opportunities, and Xavier is actually one of the trainers for that. So if you need some help with getting your staff trained up on knife skills and using local foods, then that's a great resource that already exists. Anything else to add, Xavier?
Oh, I'm good. If anybody has any questions for me, Colleen will get you my information. The slides will be available for anyone who need them. And we'll be happy to visit any schools who have questions or concerns about their local farmers, or MSU Extension has been a great asset with providing all the information to us over the last 6 years. So.
Thanks. Yeah, and can you hang on for a little bit? We can take some questions after.
No, not going anywhere. I'll be here.
All right, cool. So we're going to turn it over now to Tom from Traverse City Area Public Schools. And Tom, can you introduce yourself and give us a little bit of your stats? How long have you been doing local food purchasing? I know it's been going on at the district there for a long time. And how big is your district, to give folks a sense of that?
Good morning, everyone. I have been doing farm to school for 17 years. We have been doing the 10 cents since the beginning. We were one of the pilot schools that started regionally. It's been 8 years since it started. We were with then Michigan Land Use Institute. Now the Groundworks was the one that helped us put it together. So it's been quite a run watching it from getting donations locally to buy local food to getting it into the state legislature and getting a bill written to help every school in Michigan be able to do the 10 cent. That was something that I had as a goal. I came from Ohio originally. We were the first school in Ohio to do farm to school. So I was teaching farm to school around Ohio before I came up here to Traverse City, and I had wanted to do a 10 cent down there. So when I got up here in Michigan Land Use Institute, Groundworks had it all set up. It was wonderful to step right into it and be able to do the pilot and work it through. One of the things I want to remind you, I wasn't sure what they wanted from me here today, so I kind of threw something together. One of the things I want to do is really promote the 10 cent. And by doing that, I want to say, hey, if you buy local produce, cases of local produce, you're getting it at half price. When you think about it, for every 20 cents, you're getting 10 cents back. So you're getting a case of local produce at half price. And that can be calculated into your bids and quotes when you figure out who gets the bid or quote, that you can calculate it at half price. So if you were going to buy Washington apple, red delicious apples because they're better priced, all of a sudden that Macintosh and Honeycrisp is looking pretty good at half price a case. And you can go ahead and get that for your people based on the cost. So up here, what I do, I buy from a local co-op. One of my distributors is local co-op, My Farm Co-op out of Leelanau. We also buy from GFS when they have produce available, which is answering the question that Colleen said about having contracts. GFS and other people don't always have Michigan produce. So if you want Michigan produce, you can go outside your contract because they can't always supply it. And especially at the cost of half price. If you're buying local and they can show it's local, you get the half price. But if they don't, then again, you can go outside the contract for bid. We also buy from Michigan Farm to Freezer. Brandon, who runs that, came from the Farm to Freezer up here. It used to be the Goodwill Farm to Freezer program. So we were one of the first schools to buy it. By the way, I have 10,000 kids. I forgot to say that, Colleen. We have 10,000 students. So we have a lot of buildings to spread the food across, which is sometimes a blessing, sometimes not. If you're a smaller school, it's sometimes easier to incorporate farm to school in than when you have to do it over that many buildings. Obviously, this year has been very challenging because we don't have our salad bars. We have to plan on feeding kids in the classroom rather than the cafeteria. It's much easier to add produce to a salad bar than into a bag lunch. But we have still been able to do it. And you just have to be a little more creative and you can get her done. I do recommend schools find a way to source some local and take advantage of 10 cent. Even if you're only doing it a little bit, again, it's at half price. Let's go ahead and do it and be able to keep the program going across Michigan. We got $2 million. We want to be able to use that so we can even expand it farther and more schools can buy more. So I encourage you all to sign up. And if you're afraid that you can't spend too much the first year, go smaller on what you expect to spend, and at least you get started. with all the fires, storms, droughts, floods, snow, and whatever else they get out west and down south, it's going to be tougher and tougher to source from our regular produce distributors or produce growers. So if Michigan has the produce, we want to take advantage of that, because many of them may not have it out there in the south and west, just due to what's going on as far as global warming and everything else. So let's get our infrastructure built up here locally, make sure we're buying from the farmers so they can expand. So as they have problems out there, we still have produce here. So help out the local farmers and make sure that we're building that infrastructure, so as they keep having problems out there, we can take care of ourselves. We are incredibly lucky to have legislators that are out there making sure that we were able to do this program. So as I said, get up off your rusty dusties and do what you have to do to make it happen. You might have to do a little work, but the work is well worth it. You'll find that the community supports you, the children support you, and I think the food tastes better when you get it from local sources. Like I said, I'll take a Honey Crisp over a Red Delicious anytime. That being said, remember, apples are one thing we can source all year from Michigan for the most part. So go out and find a local apple grower and see if they'll work with you. I've had great success just going to farm markets over the years. Before I had places to buy from, I just go up to a farm market or a local farmer that has a stand and say, hey, could you supply us? And that you'll find out that a lot of them are willing to do it. A lot of them are willing to deliver. It's important they deliver. But you have to ask. Until you ask, you don't know. So even if they'll only do 3 of your buildings, if you're a big district like mine, we had a building that was surrounded by orchards, and I talked to the farmer and he was able to take it right over to the school. The kids could watch it grow from the beginning all the way through and then eat it. So, I mean, you never know until you ask. So I encourage you to go out and ask the farmers and see if they can help you. In a lot of cases it can. Also, you got all these resources here that will help you find somebody that can do it. When we're talking about being creative, one of the things we have is when I do farm to freezer, we have bought apples, sliced apples, peaches, blueberries, Saskatoons, which we did a taste test kids love, sweet cherries, tart cherries, and that's when you need to get a little creative. You can make crisp with pretty much any of those fruits, frozen fruits. You can make crumbles with that. You can do cinnamon apples, cinnamon peaches, and after you cook them, you can serve them cold. The next day, you scoop them up in a 4-ounce with a lid and put it in a bag and serve it to the classroom. So you just got to be a little creative and you can still do it. So again, a lot of work has been done by all the people we're listening to here today, our legislators, Groundworks. I encourage you to, even if in a small way, join the effort and get started. And each year you can grow it. And it's not too hard to meet all the parameters that they want us to meet as far as doing the 10 cents. So go out there and do it. Kelly?
Tom, I was going to ask you to tell us more about the products you used, but you covered that already. So I think we had here 3 really great examples of folks who are doing farm to school in slightly different ways based on what works for the size and the scope of their program. So we heard from Xaviar, who runs a fairly small RCCI compared to some of our large districts, like Tom, who has 10,000 kids, and Jennifer's in the middle there with a medium-sized district in an area that's surrounded by agriculture. So we heard from more urban, rural, suburban, and different sized programs with different kinds of history. So I hope that gives you all a sense of how this can look different, and you can form it to suit your needs and work with growers and suppliers to make it work for you. We did have a question come in, and maybe we'll also send this back to our MDE colleagues to give the official answer. And then maybe Tom, you can talk a little bit more about how you go about this. But for our MDE friends who are still on the line for procurement, when Tom mentioned not using GFS and going out to bid, does that mean that if districts want to order from Cherry Capital that they have to get 2 bids from other vendors first?
I'm not sure who from MDE is still on, but it would depend on the amount that you're purchasing. So it kind of goes back to that message that Jasmine had in her slides, which is kind of doing some forecasting and deciding how much you're purchasing. And then based on if you fall under that micro or small purchase threshold, you would follow those steps. But really, it's just like anytime you're purchasing, you're always doing your due diligence. You're always out there looking to see what prices are out there and getting not only what's at the best price, but what fits within your program. Maybe you need something washed and cut. You know, we had one year, we had a really great program for lettuce, and everyone got heads of lettuce, not realizing that it needed to be cut and washed and chopped in and it went through a salad spinner and things like that. So you also have to consider all of those different specifications that you need and consider the cost of all of that processing or whatever it takes to get it from, you know, the delivery to the mouths of the kids. So I'm not sure if I answered that question. But yes, you would actually still want to do your due diligence and compare those pricing and then save all of that documentation as well.
And I think what you're saying there is key, Jamie, what you said at the end there. So 2 other bids can just mean documenting pricing from 2 other sources, correct?
Yes, yes.
Under the small purchase threshold.
Yeah, yep.
So it sounds maybe scarier than it is if you can break it down to just getting other pricing, and that can include from your usual distributors. If you're trying a new source, say Cherry Capital Foods, then you can compare that against GFS.
Exactly. And it's no different than what you're doing already for your program, or even what you maybe do at home, which is just looking it up and seeing what's out there and then keeping track of those different resources and costs.
Right. So the only thing here that's different than you might do at home is you write down those price comparisons.
You write it down. Exactly.
Yep. And then just keep that on file. So Tom, are you up for talking a little bit about how you just work that in practice, your relationship with your broadline distributor versus Cherry Capital Foods, for instance?
Sure. One of the things we do for our local people that we're going to buy from is send out a letter at the beginning of the year that asks them how they want to bid their prices, whether they want to do it weekly, whether like our asparagus farmer obviously isn't going to be bidding weekly. He's going to bid when the asparagus is ready versus the My Farm or GFS. Again, it depends on when they have Michigan available. So we're going to check their price against the local price that we get. The other 2 we get send us a weekly price update, so we can, again, it's already documented. All we have to do is look at each resource and see where their prices are coming in. And we, you know, again, somebody like GFS may not be able to bid local apples after, you know, November or December. They might be buying again from out west or somewhere else. So then we have to take that in consideration for the 10 cent. Some of our distributors are going to tell you they got to have a $300 minimum on delivery which is a lot for produce. I mean, if you got a small school, you know, I have individual schools, but if you're a small district, $300 in produce may not make sense to order that apple and then have $150 go bad because you can't use it all in a week. So those are things you have to take into consideration when you're looking at pricing, is whether it makes sense for your buildings. And again, as long as you get it weekly and you can check the prices and be able to document that, you did check the prices, then that helps meet those regulations.
Thank you. And Jennifer, are you still on? Do you want to talk about how you balance that?
Here, yes, we evaluate what produce is available. We look at, we have conversations about, with our representatives from each area to find out, where can we source something from. A lot of times, if we're looking for a specific item, we would think, like, say, for example, kale. We're thinking, okay, kale is going to be pretty easy for us to locate, but sometimes that's not the case. It's just working with your, just having conversations to see what's out there, and to find sometimes it is available in many different areas. And so we just try to make sure we find the option that is the best price, that is like Tom was saying, that we can get the delivery, that we can get it in the quantity that we need, that's not going to be too much, so we're not going to have waste. Labor is something that we take into context for our purchases a lot too. Something that Jamie mentioned is, do we need it to be pre-cut and chopped? Or can we work with a whole winter squash? And it all depends on what we have going on at the time as to say, what can we do with that? So just trying to, it's a little bit of a fun puzzle to try to figure out sometimes, but having planning as much as you can to be able to go into your purchases with an idea of what is it that you want to serve and when. The more time that you have to plan, the easier it will be to be able to, start to investigate those different options. But there are times that we would, we have relationships with some of our farmers that to say, like, hey, if you have a boatload of seconds, give us a call because we can help you with that. And so then we might, swap out one of our tastings, and because if we can get carrots, for example, at a much greater reduced cost, but maybe it takes a little extra processing, then that's something that we're going to try to work in. So with the time that we got seconds on carrots, we were doing carrots in everything. But there's a lot of opportunity out there. It's just trying to be balanced about your approach.
Thank you both. And there's a good clarification point here in the chat. So we heard from one grantee that where the school is located, there's only one orchard and only a few farms nearby. And it's great to work with and support those farms, and they may have limited options. But for the purposes of the 10 cents a meal grant, we are looking at the state of Michigan. So as long as your source can identify that product as coming from the state of Michigan, then it is something you can use towards your 10 cents reimbursement grant. So just note that it's great to look at and support your very local farms and suppliers, and food hubs and places like Michigan Farm to Freezer and Cherry Capital Foods and the other bigger distributors can help you kind of expand your reach a little bit. And this gets back to the definition of local. So the definition of local for Michigan, 10 cents is Michigan, state of Michigan. And you can have your own definition of local within that. So that's something we always turn back to the food service directors to say, well, what's your definition of local and how can we help you meet that definition of local? And one thing we've been seeing more lately and promoting too in education opportunities like this is to have maybe a tiered approach. So if you first and foremost want to approach those farmers who are near to you and support them, great. Please do work with them as much as you can. But if you can't get everything you want or need from those farmers, then look outside of that a little bit maybe into your region of the state. And then you can look outside of that to what's available in the state of Michigan. So you don't have to be confined to your local area, although you may have a preference for as local as possible to you for the goals and priorities of your program and of your school district too. So those are all things that our friends and colleagues who are on the line can help with as well, but that goes back to your definition of local within this 10 cents program.
Colleen, we also want to encourage directors to sign up for the 10 cent and then keep asking your distributor to source local. If a Gordon's sets up where they're buying Michigan apples year round, obviously that helps our farmers. It helps all the different directors that may not have easy access to local. If they can just go on their Gordon's order and click Michigan apple and be able to count that towards the 10 cents. So the more of you that keep pressuring for that, the more access we'll have from the larger distributors. So again, help us out on that and we'll make it easier. The more of us that ask, the more we'll get accomplished.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, just to piggyback off of what Tom was saying, recently we have had more of those conversations, and that has led to, our broadline distributor willing to carry a specific item when we say, we will purchase this regularly and in this quantity. And so the more of us that they get out there and have these conversations, and they see that they can move the product if they bring it in, so that availability will continue to grow.
And just to note too, based on the continuing conversation in the chat, it is not all perfect, and we don't have all the foods available in all the ways through all the different channels to folks wherever they are located. So there are definitely parts of the state where it's a little tougher, and that's where talking to your broadline distributor might be more important, so that you can get what you need from them. And you're the customer, so they want to please you and make sure that you can document the source of those products for 10 cents specifically. So we are working on developing more of that local and regional food system to help move these foods. And we have this larger national traditional food supply chain that school food is very much embedded in, and we need to work on all ends of it to improve the system. And in some places it's just harder than others, and including up in the Upper Peninsula where some of the production time is shorter and the distances are longer and the school districts are smaller, and all of the challenges that those of us who are in the southern part of the state face are kind of exacerbated up there. So we definitely understand those challenges, and we are working to make some of those food systems connections happen too. So if there are things that you want and need, then do let us know at the Farmed Institution Network, because those are some projects that we can work on with you. And it might not happen tomorrow that we have a solution, but we will work on it. So any other questions?
I also encourage smaller districts that are close to each other to maybe think out of the box a little bit and order into one school, and then you all know which day it's coming in and go pick it up and spread out the cost, and so you can get a delivery. If you're asking for a pallet or something, you're more likely to get it as long as you can work it out with your business offices as far as paying each other off, and you're willing to go pick it up. I know it's a lot more work, but I think it's worth it. So think outside the box a little.
Yeah, there are a lot of creative solutions to be had here. That's a good point, Tom. Thank you. And a lot of collaboration opportunities. So we've got a lot of grantees in the state now, so we can take advantage of having more partnerships between districts too. Okay, so we are a little overdue for our general question and answer session. So with that, I'm going to say thanks to Tom and to Jennifer and to Xavier for sharing their experience. And we're going to kind of transition into a more general question and answer session. I think some of my colleagues from MSU will be kind of dropping off here, but I can certainly stay on to plug any questions back to them if any come up. but we know that there are still a lot of questions about the administration and logistics around the 10 cents grants and submitting invoices and all of that. So we wanted to be sure to leave time for you to ask the experts at MDE any of the questions that you might have. So consider this kind of an open question and answer period at this point.
Colleen, real quick before some of us from MSU jump off, I'm just dropping the quick demographic survey in the chat. If folks are able to click that link that I just dropped in there and fill that out, that would be really appreciative from those of us at MSU that are just trying to better understand who we're serving and who those folks are. So totally anonymous. If you just click that link, it'll take you to a survey really quick, a couple questions, really help us out.
Thanks, Garrett. Sorry I missed that earlier.
So Colleen, there were 2 questions in the chat that I can answer just to get it going.
Want to start with those? Yep.
Yep. Okay. So one of them was, I think it was a Farm Logics question, and it asked about like a save button. I can't remember the exact language, but I know what this is because I keep getting this question. So Farm Logics is the system that we upload the spreadsheet to that has all the invoices to it. And they made it so easy that it's almost like difficult because all you have to do is hit upload and there's no other like save button. There's no drop down boxes that you have to answer. They put it in, and then when they move it over, then it's considered uploaded. I'm actually going to talk to them this week about maybe having some kind of like indicator so people know, because it's very difficult to just hit upload and then walk away. Like you want something that shows that the invoice was actually received, or in this case, the spreadsheet was received. So we're going to look at like doing something, but really, yes, all you're doing is hitting that upload and then you're done.
Is this going back to the question that said, how long does the process take to go from draft to confirm?
That's, yes,
that
I'm
it?
assuming that's a Farm Logics question.
I did
I've
not
gotten-
understand that question, so I think
I've
that's
gotten at least a dozen people that have asked that, and they're probably like me, the type A sort of people that need like some sort of like green light to exit out of the program. And so I think that's what that is. And yes, it's just that easy to just upload and walk away, but we are going to change it in some way just because I don't know, just because of my own preference as well. So and there was another question in there just about the program in general. I think it said like in a normal year, is it normally like this? No. Nothing, we went from pilot to program and we did get that increase up to 2 million, which is amazing, but nothing else went as planned. The timeline of the budget, everything with COVID response pushed everything down. Normally we would have the grant open, awarded, the trainings, all of that much earlier in the fall. And then, of course, some people were apprehensive to apply, so we reopened the application, which I think was great. But no, that's not normal, and we don't normally administer a program like during the school year like that. I mean, we administer it, but not like have the grant open like while the school year is happening. Most of that's all related to COVID, and I think going forward, now that it is officially a program and not a pilot, we'll see that language in the budget earlier. We'll be working on everything much earlier, so that timeline will all shift back up to more of like the late summer, early fall. So yeah, I hope that answered that question as well.
Yeah, it is not the intention that it runs late by any means. And we have up until now certainly been following the timeline of the Michigan legislature. So
yes.
This 10 cents program is part of the K-12 budget that is part of the bigger state budget bill. So we're kind of, we've been beholden to their timing. Which it had been unpredictable. So maybe with it becoming a program now, as opposed to a pilot, Jamie, it's sounding like there will be a little more room for you all to keep things moving on
yes.
a closer timeline.
Yeah, so like the application, we're able to work on it. So before we couldn't even start the planning of the application until the budget was signed. And so now, because it's a program, we're actually working on next year's application now. So I feel like this whole year has been like reactive mode instead of proactive, and that's never really a good way of administering a program. So next year we're able to start working on all of that now. So it'll be ready and much more organized, and the trainings will be sooner. And so I think it's a much better place overall.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yep.
And I think, I mean, everyone's intention is for this program to be successful and to set the grantees up for success. And that we certainly know that you can buy the most and some of the freshest local foods in the fall. So exactly. That's the ideal time to get started. And this year in particular was very much delayed relative to what's optimal. So I'm glad to hear that according to MDE plans, at least, we'll be able to start off on more solid footing earlier in the school year next year, hopefully.
Absolutely.
All right.
Jamie, will you comment for us? There was some talk in the presentation about school gardens. And can you just mention something about how that relates to 10 cents, that produce doesn't really count towards your 10 cents? Will you comment on that?
Well, I think the idea is, and I could be wrong here, is that you can actually purchase from the school garden, and that would be considered local.
Okay, that's what I needed. I just want to get that clarification.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, so I think that was part of having it in there, was just as a note that school gardens are viable sources of local foods, and then they're Michigan sources of foods as under this program. And you can buy from your own local school garden or from a neighboring school garden. So you may want to check on their food safety practices and other, visit just like you would a farm. But we just wanted to drop that note in there that they are one of the types of sources that you can buy local foods from any time for farm to school, and including for 10 cents. We haven't seen a lot of that yet, but we wanted to mention that.
Yep. And I also wanted to mention something that Tom Freitas had said, which I think was really important for some of the new grantees, is that you're not expected to purchase this produce as above and beyond what you're already purchasing for your program. It's basically just incentivizing the produce that you need for your program. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but Leanna and I have had a few of these questions where I think people think that you're purchasing then additional food, and no, it's actually what you would have already been purchasing as part of your forecasting and your menuing. This is just incentivizing that it's local. And I think there was another question that came up in the chat about the spreadsheets. So you can submit them however you want into FarmLogix. You can do them weekly, you could do them monthly, you could do them quarterly, but I'm going to be getting a quarterly report from FarmLogix just to make sure that that we're getting them in the batches that we need with our timeline. So however, you could go in there every day if you wanted. You could go in there just once at the end and put them all in the end. However you want to do that is fine.
And there's another question here, Jamie, for a new grantee. Was there a training for actually entering invoices into FarmLogix?
So there was a webinar that we did in December, and we did not yet have the contract for FarmLogix, just because everything was delayed with COVID. So it did not include FarmLogix. Later after that, I think it was early January, we sent out, it's like an infographic, sort of the steps to get into FarmLogix. And all it really is getting access, clicking on the invoice section, and then uploading. It's really that easy. I mean, it's not easy because it's another password and another thing you have to get into, but I can send that to you again.
Is it something where you have a link that we could drop into the chat too?
I don't think I have a nice easy link. Okay, so Mandy's saying that you really need, okay, so FarmLogix is obviously, it's a contract, so it's not our system. We are borrowing a system. Let me ask them if they can come up with something.
And Jamie, would it be helpful for you to maybe share, I don't know how your screen looks compared to a grantee's screen, but if you wanted to share your screen at all to walk through anything, I can make you a co-host to do that. I don't know if that's helpful. I don't know what the system looks like.
Everything I have is like the same thing that they have, which is like it's screenshots. I think that they're looking for maybe something, either a video recording or something like a PowerPoint. I can ask them. I mean, obviously they're working for us, and they've asked me what we need. And so I will ask them if they can do something like that. I think maybe that would be kind of neat if they could just do something where they record themselves clicking on each of the buttons.
Yes.
Rather than just, oh, PowerPoint. So someone saying PowerPoint would be great. I'll ask for either PowerPoint or a video of FarmLogic system. And so we last year we retroactively administered the program, again because some of it was related to COVID. And we collected those invoices without FarmLogic. And it was very difficult. So if you're just like, oh, FarmLogic is just like another thing, it's actually still in our experience, it's still the best way to collect this information. So, okay, so here's another person that's saying a PowerPoint or video. So I will ask them. I have a meeting with them tomorrow, so I will ask.
Perfect. So hopefully we will have something coming soon for you. Xavier, did you have a note on that?
I did. I had, it was pretty smooth. Cherry Capital was able to actually gather everything for me. And I was able to upload it to FarmLogic. And only thing I questioned I had was, did I do it correctly? And it actually went through perfectly fine on my end. So if whatever your distributor you use or farmer, once he gathers the documents, it was an easy upload. So.
Yeah, and so the different distributors and such are learning the reporting that we need, and so they're designing reports to help you out with that. And then also FarmLogic that system is learning what people are purchasing. So the more we go through this program, the easier it gets. But that doesn't mean, that we can't provide something. We'll figure out something. But really, it is just get access, click in the invoices, upload the spreadsheet. We tried to make that as easy as possible, just because we realize it's another thing you have to do, and all of you have been working for a year straight. Like most of you didn't take much time off this summer, if any, and so we're trying to make this as easy as possible. But I will still look into that. Absolutely. I'm glad we're having this conversation. Is there any other? I don't see anything else new popping up in the chat.
Not yet.
And you can also unmute if you want to talk.
This is your time. Any administrative or kind of logistical questions about your 10 cents grant?
It could be related to the survey, FarmLogic's invoices, any kind of reporting, marketing, education.
Hi, this is Jody with Lansing, and I'm just a little concerned that when we signed up for the grant, I may have overestimated how much money I could spend because the school district isn't actually really going back into the classroom for meals. And I'm just wondering, do I need to, make a formal request to reduce it, or do we just wait until the end of August?
Leanna, do you want to answer that one?
Sure. I would wait until the end of August. At this point, switching stuff around, our guidance is for those of you who are thinking at this point that you may spend more than what we granted you, continue to spend and continue to report, because we will have some districts that that aren't going to be able to use all of their funds. And at the end, we'll just reconcile everything. But then also remember that you can go straight through the summer. So for those of you who are doing traditional summer feeding in the summer, you can use this as well for that.
Does that answer your question, Jody?
Yes, it does. And then the uploading, and I know it says draft, I'm just concerned that maybe there are questions about the invoices that I have sent in. Does somebody contact us if there's a problem? Lansing, they set it up as a $100,000 grant, like it, money. And I'm not sure if I'm supposed to turn over my spend to them or other school districts, accounting for this grant through the school district, or is it just a matter of they're tracking their invoices and that's it?
So Jody, and for anyone else who would like this answered, we have not given you any money at this point. When we say that we have granted you funds, that's essentially your potential to be granted those funds. We will pay you those funds once we receive invoices and meal counts and we reconcile that.
Yep. And the other part of her question was like if she's uploading something into FarmLogix, if there's an issue, you will hear either directly from MDE, or if it's something that FarmLogix, they have emailed people as well, just like, if there's like a little tiny bit of missing information or something like that, you will hear from one of us.
Okay.
So those invoices and information coming through FarmLogix, they are being at least monitored somewhat, right, by MDE staff for any issues?
Yeah, and that's actually why it stays in draft form, because there's like a time of where they're going through and just making sure that everything fits and there's not duplication or something like honey or applesauce or something that's not considered allowable for the grant. They're going through and clearing some of that out. And then if there's any issues or concerns, then they send that to me. And then quarterly, they send me a report for my review, and then I approve that. So lots happening behind the scenes. And then once I get that report, I forward it over to Leanna, and then the payment process starts.
Can you just also clarify, since you're being so helpful, when I'm purchasing commodities through like a Michigan apple, that cost is only the delivery, right? That actually is being reimbursed, or is it the fair market value that I need to record as the invoice total?
Sure. So it's actually, you wouldn't be getting reimbursed for a commodity item. That would actually help you meet the match requirement.
Okay.
But you would use the value, or the full value of that to meet the match.
Okay. So once we load those, I mean, like say we already did the survey, should we go back in there and make a correction to it before you look at it? Or is that something I can just expect a action to take once you've discovered I made an error?
You made an error with the invoice. You're saying with the invoices?
Maybe with the commodity, I may have. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that'll correct itself on that end. And then, like, let's say you made an error where you forgot something, you can just add it to the next batch that you send in.
Okay. And then even though I was awarded the grant in December, I know it went back, since the beginning of August. Now, I didn't go back into my August, September, and October and November invoices because I hadn't been awarded it yet. Are you saying that I should have uploaded even more invoices?
Yep, go all the way back to August 1st. You can go back.
And your meal counts, if you didn't put them in your survey, please just email them to Jamie and me, and we will add those in.
Okay. because I was afraid since I didn't get the award, I shouldn't have done that.
It's
Yeah, there's a
retro.
couple other questions in there about how far back. So the grant cycle is August 1 through September 30. So August 1 of what year are we in? So August 1 of 2020 through September 30 of 21. So you can go back, and then you can also then purchase for your summer program, and then even the start of your program for next year. So keep that in mind too. If you're not in person now, you'll hopefully be in person in the fall, and so then you'll have you have a good start to the program then. And then that's another area where FarmLogix helps, because they can kind of go through and make sure we're not reimbursing twice for something that you already got reimbursed for the year prior. That's only for people who have been in the grant for more than just this year.
Hey, is it okay if I wanted to comment on somebody talking about, getting the foods, and I whoever talked about the summer, I think it was Lansing, saying you're going to be sending foods. The Farmers to Food Box program was very much appreciated. And I think when some of the schools switched over to offering salads, they saw that they were getting more numbers again, as far as when people were picking up meals. So I really would think about that for the summer and start thinking about, either fruit or the vegetable salads and things you could offer. It's really going to be a great way of getting local foods at that time.
Thanks, Lori. That's Lori Yelton from the Michigan Department of Ag and Rural Development, just for those who don't know her. So we answered the how far back we can claim question, which Tracy seconded. So I think we're good on that. And then there's another question here about just clarifying. The payments to the grantees are reimbursed at 10 cents per claimed meal with matching invoices for local fruits and vegetables.
That is correct. That is correct. So we have awarded you a potential of $1,000. You then, by purchasing and submitting invoices for $2,000, and then submitting meal counts where you actually served one of those 10-cent produce items, we then will reimburse you up to that $1,000, essentially in increments of 10 cents per every one of those meals.
And let's not forget legumes. Just want to note
yes.
that there. Those are eligible. Michigan is I think we're still the second largest producer of dry beans in the country. So we do have a lot of dry beans to be had in various forms. So Michigan grown fruits, vegetables, and legumes, they can be fresh or they can be minimally processed, and that includes frozen. Okay. I think this was important to answer some of these fundamental questions. It's complicated, and I think you're helping. So one more question from June here. Can you verify for DOD invoices, should they list the fair market value and not the delivered cost? Should we correct the spreadsheets, and how do we submit the corrected spreadsheet?
So the first answer is yes. For DOD or anything else that you're using, whether it's fresh fruit, vegetable, DOD, unprocessed fruit and vegetable pilot, whatever it is in there, you would use the fair market value, not the delivered cost of like $2.50 or whatever it might be. And if you wanted to correct those spreadsheets, I think in this case, probably send them to me, and then I will just make that correction on the spreadsheet that you already submitted and send it to me, and then I will work directly with FarmLogix to make sure that the correct value is in there. And do we add the delivery cost to fair market value? You can. It's still considered part of the cost.
And for DOD, just to clarify on that too, you would need to make sure that it is a product that is grown on a Michigan farm for it to be eligible.
Yeah, and actually it's because a lot of that's coming from their distributor. Those spreadsheets have been perfectly like completed, filled out perfectly.
Awesome.
So yeah.
Great.
And then there's an indicator in there too of if it's DOD. So that actually is working out quite well this year.
Good. So less question in that whole system.
Yes, yes.
Okay. I think we are a few minutes over past 11 o'clock, and we can wrap up at this point. I'm not seeing any other burning questions coming through, but I think we answered some, you answered some important ones today. So thank you, MDE folks, for staying on the line. How do you want folks to be in touch, or what should they expect from here?
I think I'm going to throw our email addresses in here and they can reach out about anything specific. And then I will be in touch with all of the grantees about any updates to Farm Logics.
Great.
Yep.
And we will be in touch with one of our resource sheets that we shared today where we've got more contact info, and we've recorded this whole webinar and we'll break it down into some smaller pieces so that folks can listen as they want. So we'll get that over to the MDE folks too, to be able to share out to all the grantees, whether you were here today or not, to be able to check back.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you all for joining. And I hope this helps. And we're here to support you. So know that we're happy to answer other questions as they come, but we're looking for ways to provide you with what you need to succeed in 10 cents. So good luck and stay in touch. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.